Yeah, I love that concept of what are you giving up to have the success? And that helps you define, is this the right kind? Is this the one that I should be chasing after?
Exactly.
So,
George, I don't think, and I know no one on your podcast has ever said this before, but I don't think success actually exists.
whoa, mic drop.
And I mean that quite literally. People will call into the Minimalist podcast and we'll do this little thought experiment with them. I love to do it with you as well. So like if someone says, I'm looking to be successful or whatever, I'll say, tell me what you think of when you think of a successful person. And they often pull out this sort of GQ advertisement of a supposedly successful person. Show me some characteristics. And it's almost always a guy wearing a suit, right? With a Rolex or some other watch. They have a fancy car, a big house. Maybe they even have a boat, people will recommend. They'll say he has cufflinks or a tie. And it's always about the sort of exterior, right?
Yeah.
It's the image. And so in our culture, success represents a whole lot of chasing. But it is that very chasing that makes us miserable. So yes, I was successful in my 20s. I made really good money, but I spent even better money. I had a ton of debt. I had a lot of discontent, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety in my life in my 20s. So was I successful still? I don't think so. If the price for success is misery, I would rather be a failure.
Success means different things to different people. And that definition may mean you want the nice car. And that's okay as long as you do it with a lot of intention. Yeah. And as long as you don't get to the end and go, that wasn't it.
Right.
Which is what most people do.
Sure.
We're not against stuff. We're not against things. The problem with the things is they often get in the way of the things that are important, right? And so success doesn't exist in the traditional sense. Now, can we all define it differently? Sure. It becomes really nebulous and postmodern if we all have our own individual thing that we mean by success. But culture generally means one thing. And they mean that successful person, that image that you see of someone. And that's when I say it doesn't exist. But there is something else there. There's contentment, there's tranquility, there's happiness, there's peace. And if those things are synonymous with success for you, wonderful. I just think most people don't ever associate peace with success. In fact, it tends to be the opposite. Hustle culture, being frantic, multitasking. Yeah. Busyness has become a badge of honor. Whenever I used to say, like, people say, hey, how you doing? Oh, real busy. Like that was a good thing, right? But the problem with busyness, what am I really saying when I say I'm busy? My life is out of control. I don't have control of my schedule, my calendar, my activities, my days, my life. It's controlled by all these other people. I'm not living a responsible life. I'm living a reactive life, reacting to everyone else's urgent tasks that aren't necessarily urgent to me.
Yeah. You talked about someone going down that path and then getting in there. They're like, oh, this isn't it. I mean, that is that's an unintentional path. Anytime you embark on major life changes, like you have to get clear on what are you trying to get out of it, why, getting back to that why. But if there's someone listening to this right now, they just ran out a gigantic dumpster and threw all their stuff away. I mean, it's possible for them to come home and sulk and be completely miserable because now they've just gotten rid of all their, pacifiers that they had in their life. Yeah. And, Josh and I, our message isn't get rid of your stuff. Getting rid of your stuff for the sake of getting rid of your stuff is A, it's not intentional, but B, that's not going to bring you happiness. That's not what Josh and I are promising. In fact, we're not promising anything. What we're doing is we're just sharing our story. We're sharing our recipe on how we got from suit and tie corporate guys to simplifying our lives. And there are ingredients there that people can certainly tweeze out. But, we had two different paths. And, I wouldn't recommend anyone follow our path directly. Unless they can look at the why and say, that's exactly what I want, then more power to you. But often we don't ask why. We go down the path. And then that's when we get to the point where we're like, oh, no, that didn't work. Now what? And then we try to latch on to the next thing.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons, Ramsey has been so successful is because Dave's been preaching about financial peace. And at some level, we all crave that peace. And if we crave it on our finances, we also crave it in our marriages, in our careers. And so we've started expanding our message to go, we want you to have peace in every area of life. Yeah. And that's been really cool to see because we found that you can be crushing it at work and your business is doing great, but man, your marriage is falling apart.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be healthy in all of these areas of life. So when it comes down to it, how do you be kind of that well-rounded, healthy leader?
Yeah. I think people often, they respect you when they see that you are congruent, right? Yeah. Integrity is the word, right? Integer, the oneness, right? And people will often come up to us, whether it's an event or when we're leading people that way, or we're leading our team of 20 or 30 people, a much smaller team than the Ramsey team. But we're appreciated because we're the same person, whether we're on a microphone or a camera or just sitting down with you for a cup of coffee, right? Like Ryan and I are a bit more jokey when we're not on air, and we'll be silly, but we can be silly on air too. If you're asking me some silly questions, I'm going to give you some silly answers, right? And people respect that. And so leadership for us has a lot to do with understanding how we add value to the people on our team, how we're able to contribute to them. And it's also a symbiotic relationship. We're not just taking from them. Our last book was called Love People, Use Things, because the opposite never works. And it's become the core of our message. Too often when we lead people, we try to, it's transactional. I'm giving you this money, so you will do this for me. And okay, I understand that's part of a company. I need to hire you to do some things for me, but I'm still going to treat you like a human being. I'm still going to love you. And understanding what love is, most of us don't really understand love is the problem. And so maybe the best way to lead people is to love them.
And that's missing in our toxic leadership culture today.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people are leaving. They're leaving bad managers. They're not really leaving companies. They're leaving poor missions. They want something with meaning. They want people who care.
100%.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
That's the recipe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because my old corporate job, definitely some managers I didn't look up to and who I wanted to run away from. But, I remember driving from Dayton, Ohio to Cincinnati, Ohio, and there's a stretch, 75, the interstate there. And it's always backed up with traffic. And I remember just always being in traffic on my way to my job, just being so resentful of I got to go and sell these cell phones and deal with bad bosses. And man, if I could just find something where I could help people, that would be amazing. And that's where my focus was. And that's why we started theminimalists.com. It was to help people. But I've had this realization over the last decade of doing this. Even in my old corporate job, there was 5% of it where I was helping people. I had employees that I was getting ready to fire, and then I could put them on an action plan, and a very caring action plan, not here's how we're gonna get you out of the company. But I've helped people go from getting ready to get fired to becoming employee of the month, and that stuff was amazing. So over the last decade, what I've realized, no matter what we do for a job, we're helping. Even that cashier at McDonald's, they're helping you with the transaction of getting food. I don't recommend eating McDonald's; it's unhealthy. But anything we do is really helping people. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is for someone out there who is maybe struggling with what they want to be an entrepreneur in, or what they want to do for their living. It's think about the ways that you want to help people. That's what a good entrepreneur does. They help people. They add value, and when you add value to people's lives, people are going to go way out of their way to support you.